CS is a game where players battle it out with precise shooting and insanely low time to kill. Many of the top players we saw throughout the history of this game left us in awe and became known thanks to their insane accuracy, amazing reflexes and jaw-dropping flicks. But CS is more than just that. You have players that can read the game as if they saw it written on their screen. You have players who can slip past their enemies as if they were ghosts. There are players that seem like they are always in the right spot at the right time. Players that can devise game-winning plans with minimal info in a matter of seconds and explain them to their team with concise and comprehensive communication. And still, there is one aspect of this game that influences almost, if not all of these skills, and that is utility usage. The evolution of utility usage changed the way this game is played many times over, where the whole strategies revolve around it, and is still, to this day, one of the most important aspects of this game. Here's how to use utility in CS2. Okay, so let's start by explaining why the utility is so important, and it's thanks to the big variety of advantages that it offers if used properly. And I say that because if you use it incorrectly, it can actually become disadvantageous. Advantages such as blinding the enemies, taking the enemy's vision, damaging or killing an enemy, stopping an enemy push, and many more. And using it, it can be a disadvantage because it has the same effect on your allies. So please, don't be that guy that blinds his teammates every second round. Beside that, utility is one of the few ways to deal with AWPers. So being able to use it well if an enemy plays an AWP is really important. So now that we have that out of the way, how do we use utility properly? I will first list all the nades and their respective uses. First off, let's start with the most important util in this game, that being Flashbang. Flashbang is a nade priced at $200 and you can buy 2 of them each round. Of course, if you don't already have one from the previous round. And the main use of this nade is to blind your enemies. Being able to use flashes well will exponentially increase your kills and also limit how many times you die, especially from an AWP. Because if you blind an AWPer, he has no choice but to hide behind the closest cover. Disclaimer: sometimes you will die because they will do a blind shot before retreating, but that's part of the game, so you will have to get over it and continue to the next round. And this brings us to the second use, which is forcing the enemies out of angles. And this is very important, because if an enemy is in a good position and you blind him, same as with the AWPer from before, he will have to retreat. And that means that if he wants to reclaim that position, he has to pick you. So now you are holding the advantage, beside having gained a little bit of additional map control. Another way you can use flash is to set up a counter, where player 1 is holding a lineup for a flash and player 2 is playing counter flash behind some angle and listening for clues as to when he should give player 1 a signal to throw the flash to blind an enemy so he can get a kill beside delaying the push. I highly recommend learning some flash lineups. Don't just learn lineups for smokes, because the difference between A good lineup and B a randomly thrown flash is possibly A blinded enemy, or B an enemy that managed to dodge the flash, or even an enemy that wasn't blinded at all. Now as to what you should watch out for. Try to not throw flashes that will blind your teammates, as it can get them killed. If it's a flash that they need to dodge, tell them beforehand. Second, learn after how much time does the flash explode, so that you don't blind yourself after coming out of your anti-flash position. For those who don't know, anti-flash simply means to play in a way that a flash won't blind you, such as hiding behind an angle where the flash won't reach, or simply turning away from it. Okay, let's explain smokes now. Smoke is a nade that when thrown will create a smoke screen that will block vision. And there are 2 main uses of smoke. First is to block an enemy's sight when entering a site. And it's extremely useful as you can smoke far away positions like Ticket and Jungle on A-side Mirage. And this allows you to clear close positions on site like Under Palace, Tetris and Default without exposing yourself. And that's exactly what you want to do. You don't want to smoke close positions like Firebox on A side, because the only thing that you accomplish with that is giving your enemy more space to play with, as you will extend his cover. You want to smoke chokeholds that serve as entries to the site, so that the enemy can't see you from outside the site. And the enemies inside, you will deal with them with other pieces of utility or with trading. And you need to be ready to die when entering the site, as the odds are stacked against you. Meanwhile, the second use of the smoke is to block an enemy push. And it works wonders, because if you try to cross the smoke and there is an enemy behind it, he will see you first, so it's a fight you will almost always lose. So in short, smoke is an utility to secure map control, which is one of the most important aspects of CS. You can also use smoke to extinguish molotovs, very useful in some situations. You can also throw it close to you, giving yourself an additional cover, or you can throw it in another side of the map to confuse your enemies. As for what you need to watch out for, as I said before, if you throw it in an inconvenient spot, like Fountain on B Inferno, you will just block your vision into the side and give your enemies more cover to play with when you are playing as AT. In this case, it doesn't go both ways, and that's because he can just sit behind the smoke and wait. You need to run him down, and if you decide to wait, you will give your enemies time to rotate, and you will make your other smokes dissipate as well, before getting into the side. Which means you will need to use an additional utility, which means that you will have less util for the afterplant. Worst case scenario, your execute will fail and you all will die. Beside that, if you throw smoke under you, so that you can sneak around, you are basically taking away your own vision. And if there are two enemies behind the smoke, they can just hold the edges of it and kill you when you pick them, because they have the position advantage. Or they can wait until the smoke dissipates and in worst case scenario trade each other. Also, if you use smoke for diversion, something along the lines of I will throw the smoke on A so that at least one guy from B rotates, but he does not rotate, well, you just wasted the smoke. And one last thing, and many people even in high ranks forget about it, smoke is not a wall. You can shoot and you can be shot through it. Just remember this, it's pretty important. As for our next nade, we will talk about Molotov. Molotov is a $400 utility as a T and $600 as a CT. It's expensive, but it's worth its price, and it's pretty straightforward. You throw it on the ground and it burns, and if somebody is inside it, it deals damage. There are really only two uses. You use it to stop a push, and if they will not respect it, they will take some damage, which is especially useful as a CT, because if they take 8 damage or more, you can one-shot them in the head even with M4. Its second use is to clear position, without having to physically clear it yourself, because if they stay in that position, they will die, so they need to either use a smoke to extinguish the flames, or run out of there, which takes their positional advantage. Good example would be B barrels on overpass. As to what you don't want to do is throwing it under yourself or your teammates. Next is HE. HE is even more straightforward than Molotov. You throw it, it explodes, it deals damage. And for HE, the main ways to use it is to throw it on the spot where the enemies will be early on, throwing them at the right timing at a certain spot where the enemies are often, holding onto it to use it reactively when you hear the enemies, throwing it where there is enemy that you think is low on HP, and finally throwing multiple nades at the same place as to either kill the enemy or take a huge chunk of his HP. For the first option, spots like Banana, Ramp on Mirage or Mid on Adobis are spots where a lot of players use HE at the start of the round. For our second option, spots like Ups on Mirage, Sandbags on Inferno and Short on Overpass are really good options. In our third option, it's basically, you hear the enemy, you throw the HE. The fourth option is basically the same, beside the fact that you already know that the enemy is there and that he is low on HP. And for our final option, you need to coordinate with one or more of your teammates to throw the HEs at the same place at the same time. HEs are extremely useful, because they can either damage the opponent to the point where you need 1/2 less bullets to kill them, and the same as with Molotov, if they do 8 or more damage, you can headshot kill the enemy even with M4 even if he has armored. Obvious things you don't want to do here is to damage your allies or yourself. And our last piece of utility is Decoy. Decoy can do 3 things. It can distract the enemy for a moment, before he realizes that it is not a player that is shooting, but that it's a decoy grenade. You can use it as a fake flashbang, or you can use it when you hold a pistol and then pick up your gun after you use the decoy, as to fool your enemies into thinking that you have eco. But none of these options are really guaranteed to work, and all the other nades are simply more useful, so I don't really recommend picking it up. So now that we explored the use of every nade, how do we use them? The main use of utility is map control. You want to use your nades to gain control of strategic spots of the map, which will give you a net advantage over the enemy team. And every map has one of these. For Mirage, it's mid. As a T, it's advantageous because if you have mid control, you can do split pushes to either A or B. You can try to do some sneaky plays through window and ladder. You can weaken the defense on the sides, which makes it easier for players on the wings of the map to get kills without being traded, which, if they manage to do, you will have much easier time securing the bomb plant, and it allows you to cut rotations through the center of the map. Meanwhile, if you control mid as a CT, you force the Ts to go for the side takes and executes only through side entrances, which are palace and ramp on A and ups on B. And this is much easier to defend than if you have to also worry about the players being on mid. You can also do lurks through T-spawn and underpass, and you secure yourself rotation route through the middle of the map, which, beside being faster for short and connector players, also means that if you are rotating to defend B side, you won't all be grouped up in market. On Inferno it's banana. If you have banana control as a T, you can pressure B players into using major part of their utility early on, so that they don't have any nades to defend the side with in the late round. By having banana control, you can also eliminate any possibility of a lurk coming from B side, as well as generally having more options to play with. Meanwhile, as a CT, if you have banana control, you will delay eventual B take, which will give your teammate time to rotate, and it also might push your enemies into going for a A side take, as they might think it's better option than having to reclaim banana and then go for B execute. This also provides info that all the enemy players are on A side of the map, which allows one of the players from B to rotate to A, having 4 players there. And even though there are 5 enemies, 5v4 side take is extremely disadvantageous. And if they choose to go to B anyway, you can position an opponent on banana, where he can get 1, maybe 2 kills, which will give you an enormous advantage. Lastly, if they cannot be fast enough, they might lose because they run out of time, in which case, besides losing, they won't get any money, possibly playing next round without any nades. Then on Anubis, Ancient and Dust, it's mid, and it's more or less due to same reasons as mid on Mirage. But on Anubis you also have water/connector/stairs, so that you can rotate or lurk between sides. On Ancient you have Cave, Red Room and Donut, which will allow you easier side takes as a T, and easier and swifter rotates, safer lurks, and more time for rotation as a CT. And on Dust you have Short and Long, which, if you have both as a T, is a surefire way to get an A side, and as a CT, it makes lurks and sneaky kills easier and more plausible, besides gaining time on rotates and splitting the map in half. On Nuke, it's outside, because if you control outside as a T, you get access to every part of the map. Meanwhile, as a CT, it gives you info that everybody is towards lobby and administrator. The second main use is to defend a side with the utility. In this case, you use your util that remained after initial map control in a most efficient way possible. You don't want to spam your util uselessly, use it smartly, so that if there wasn't a real reason to use it, you still have some nades by the end of the round. If you think it's a good idea, you can also try to gain map control back. As they say, the best form of defense is offense. Because if we take Inferno as an example, and we want to win a car back, all we need is one flash. Don't take it too literally though. Do it only if it's necessary. For example, if nobody can rotate, or if you can exploit something. For example, if there is a heavy presence towards A, if you flash the car and there is somebody hiding, you could have free kill and additional map control. Also, a tip for Inferno B defense. It is a pretty good idea to have your long player drop you some nades on spawn, or having him learn car smoke lineup from long. Another main use of utility are executes. Executes are basically coordinating with your team to throw a bunch of nades onto one side at the same time to cover all the city entrances to the side with the smokes, clear 2 to 3 positions with molotovs, flash your enemies not with 1 but with 2 or more flashbangs, and maybe throw in some sneaky HEs. Of course, this depends on what side it is you decided to take, as different sides need more or less util for an execute. And to pull off an execute, you need first have some lineups, as the whole point of an execute is to having to throw as little utility as possible when you are entering the site, so that you can focus only on gunfights. And second, you need to coordinate with your teammates to throw all the util at the same time, and there are two reasons for that. First, you want all of your smokes and molotovs to land by the time you enter the site, so that you are covered from all the directions and so that as many positions as possible have already been cleared by molotovs. And the second is, if somebody starts to throw the utility a little too early, it can notify the enemies and the rotates could happen a little faster, which might be a difference between a won round and a lost round. And then we have post plants and retakes, which are basically site defense and site takes / executes, but instead of T's attacking and CT's defending, the roles are reversed. And these happen after T's manage to get site control. And the main thing here is that both teams will have less util to either attack or defend. And lastly, we have utility usage to secure kills, like stacking HEs at the same place, combining HEs with molotovs, and of course flashing the enemies. And now for some additional tips. You have limited nades when you play, so don't throw them all at the start of the round, unless it is required for a specific strategy. Remember, utility used now is a utility you won't be able to use later, and you don't need grenades just at the start of the round. Remember, you don't need to end the round in the first 30 seconds. Conversely, if you buy nades, use them. Don't just let them sit in your inventory, because there are so many things you can use them for and advantages you can gain. So don't buy util just to die without using it, because that's just money wasted. And now for the fun stuff. If you want to learn some lineups, you can use workshop maps where you can train lineups inside the map. I will leave some of those maps in the description. Or you can go to YouTube and find videos with lineups for a specific nade on a specific map. There are many good channels, but my go-to is CS Tactics, especially his video on solo executes. So go check him out, I will leave the link in the video description. And you can train these lineups by going to Play tab in the main menu, selecting Practice and enabling Grenade Camera, Infinite Ammo and Infinite Warm-Up. And then just select the map you want to practice on and click play. Another thing is, you don't want to use utility if you are in the 1v1 situation where you are close to the enemy, or if you are close to your enemy generally and nobody is covering you, because what will happen, and I assure you this will happen, you will pull up your beautiful flashbang and before you even throw it, the enemy will come out and shoot you in the head. So remember that. One last tip that I will give you is to not try to learn every single lineup on every single map right away. Take it slowly. But if you still want to do it, don't do it with all the maps. Instead, set 2, max 3 maps that you will be playing for a set amount of time. Something along the lines of, okay, I learned a lot of lineups for Mirage and Dust, so I will play only these two for next couple of days, and after that, switch to another 2 maps. Make some kind of map rotation routine. Strategic importance of utility is very important in CS, so having at least a basic understanding of it is necessary. But don't be discouraged if you can't use it effectively right away, because as if everything in this game, it takes time to learn. And with this, I will end the video. So if you liked it and it was helpful, leave a like and comment on what I should do next. See ya!